exciting program for you and a great panel coming up. I'm sure the slide will come up soon. Obviously, RCS was a very popular topic. I see some of you leaving, but this, I promise you, this section now is the most interesting set of topics. So, as Dario mentioned, I'm leading a new working group within MEF called Mobile Evolution. So we're going to be talking now about evolution and transformation. So we're switching gears a little bit here. So the next 4 sessions, we'll be talking about evolution. The next 2 sessions are on telco APIs. Then we talk about a new communication standard called VCON, and we wrap up with everyone's favorite topic, AI. So evolution and transformation. So who am I? Doug Makishima. I am running this new Mobile Evolution working group. So all you MEF members here that aren't participating, I invite you to participate. We have roughly monthly working group meetings. We also have an interest group meeting that happens occasionally that has some informative content and keeps you up to speed on what's going on in the space. And if you're not a MEF member, of course, this is a good reason, a compelling reason to join MEF. So that is, I wear multiple hats, so that's my MEF hat. I'm also in industry with a couple companies. Summit Tech, I've worked with many of you at Summit, where we do messaging, IMS, and implementing actually some of these APIs. At Mobile World Congress earlier this year in Barcelona, we demonstrated 3 demos of implementations of APIs, one with Orange for the QOD, Quality of Service on Demand API, and then 2 hyperscalers, both AWS and Microsoft Azure, for APIs in Brazil for number verification, identity, and geolocation. So I'm waiting for my panelists to be ready and mic'd up, but if you could pop the slide up possibly for my panel, that'd be great. So one question, first of all, is how many in the audience have heard of network APIs? Show of hand. 1 person has heard of network APIs. Okay, well then you're in the right place because you're going to learn all about network APIs. So mobile operators are transforming their networks into, oh, you got the slide, into open platforms, network as a service platforms using standardized APIs. So that's when we're talking about network APIs or telco APIs, this is what we're talking about. Now, the first thing I'll say is APIs are not new. Right, I was talking to somebody up here, John, that they've been developing API gateways for 9 years. I saw Neil McGrath from AT&T here, and if you all remember, you show up to CES a week before for the AT&T developer conference, and it's basically a hackathon, and you develop applications against their APIs. So telco APIs are definitely not new. What's new is that now, when I said the key phrase, transformation using standardized APIs. So the GSMA, and in collaboration with the Linux Foundation Chimera, which I'm on the end user council and technical steering committee of the Linux Foundation Chimera project. So that's my background in terms of why I'm talking about APIs and leading this Mobile Evolution working group. So again, the difference is standardized APIs. So the problem with telco APIs in the past is that they've been largely proprietary and either single vendor or single operator. And as we've learned with messaging, business messaging, RCS, that does nobody any good. Okay, maybe 1% of the population, but what you really need is both scale and reach. And we've actually recently proven this. There was a launch in Brazil, and one of our panelists can talk more about this, where they collaboratively launched, I like to say a single, but it's a set of really 3 APIs out of 20 plus. In region, in country, but covering all the mobile operators there. So immediately you could utilize these APIs across your entire customer base if you're an enterprise and you're trying to reach all your customers with these functions. So again, standardization is really important, and reach is really important. So this new GSMA Open Gateway, which was launched roughly 2 years ago, is now really gaining traction in the marketplace. And why are operators doing this? Well, we've heard this time and time again, it's a common refrain, but these operators want to transition from being a telco to a techco, right? They want to become a service provider, again, not, pardon the French, a dumb pipe, right? Today, the services from a service provider is a all-you-can-eat plan. It's text, voice, and data. So with network as a service APIs, the operators have an opportunity to transform their networks to enable new applications, to improve the user experience of existing applications, and bring new monetization opportunities. So with that, let me invite the panelists to come on stage. Okay, great. So we have a very impressive panel here that represents a cross-section of the whole ecosystem. So again, we are MEF, Mobile Ecosystem Forum. So we're very privileged today to have a mobile operator. We have a CPaaS provider, an aggregator platform, and even at the software stack and OS, a virtualization player. So let's just kick it off with introductions. I'll let you introduce yourself, say a little bit about who you're with, the company, and then what you're doing in APIs.
All right,
Alicia.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
Great. Hi, everyone. Alicia Miller. I am the product manager for network APIs at Verizon. I also sit on the board of GSMA's Open Gateway Initiative, as well as Kamara, and am the treasurer of Kamara. So if you have any ideas for events that we should go to as Kamara, please let me know.
Hello, my name is Fatih Nar, Distinguished Architect at Red Hat, previously Google, Verizon, and my first startup that I sold was basically selling polymonolith services over APIs back 1999. Good days.
Colin Brown, I head up product for Vonage for our API platform, and for the last year I've been heavily focused on the network APIs.
Hi everybody, Mijo Soldin, I'm Telco strategy in Infobip, more than 25 years in Telco industry.
Great, thanks. So let's just kick it off with some discussion about a big news item that came out about a month ago now. This announcement from Ericsson is a new company or a joint venture it was announced with a large number
12.
of 12. Okay, thanks. 12 top-tier major operators, wireless operators globally. So then the mission is to accelerate adoption of these APIs, but also monetization, and really help. In fact, this new company, the joint venture, goal is to rapidly implement APIs, but also sell the API services through a channel, which I'll let my distinguished panelists discuss further, particularly since we have Verizon here, who's one of the 12 operators. We also have Vonage, which is parent company is Ericsson. So maybe let's start with Alicia, since you are both Verizon and Kamara.
Great. Yeah, so we announced and launched a JV with 12 global carriers and Ericsson. And like Doug said, the goal is to accelerate the market adoption. And the way that the JV is going to help us do that is by not only bringing together the top tier carriers or the top major carriers in a lot of markets across the world, but also helping make sure that we're all committed to launching these APIs, that we have a critical mass of the same APIs available both within and across markets. That's what really unlocks scale for developers, is when they're able to access that same API no matter what carrier their customer is on. And so the JV really brings us all together kind of in the same way where really a rising tide lifts all ships in this instance. And so really excited about this partnership, about the JV, about really accelerating this market. And I do believe that it is going to be faster than it would have been otherwise had we not all come together to pool our resources, to create this JV, to work together towards the same goal of really giving developers more access to telco networks and telco network capabilities.
So, Colin, I mentioned Vonage as just a subsidiary or a child company of Ericsson, but also in the announcement, Vonage is specifically cited as well as Google Cloud as partnering with the JV. So could you comment?
Yeah, I mean, we're extremely excited about it. Every conversation we have with our customers is network APIs sound wonderful. We have use cases they can be used for, but when are you going to have global coverage? That is the number one ask these days that we're seeing. I'm sure you're probably seeing similar stuff as well. And we think this accelerates it. It makes it real. It brings on all the operators that have not been part of it, and they see it's real, and we can get to ubiquitous coverage faster. It's a great thing.
Thanks, Mijo. Comments from you?
Well, I have like a professional and personal comment. So professionally, it's very excited. As Colin and Alice said, like, we need this adoption, we need coverage. We as Infobip tried together with GSMA like 4 or 5 years ago, like some kind of product which smelled like mobile identity and then comes now into the Camara and all these nice APIs. And we broke a couple of teeth learning together with the ecosystem what's needed, like coverage is needed, adoption is needed, the readiness of the market is needed, not just carriers, but everybody, like, like supply and demand and everybody in between. The personal comment is having in mind, I worked for Ericsson 20 years, finally.
Great, thanks. And Fatih, where does Red Hat fit into the picture here? I know Red Hat is, has high penetration of telcos. Your virtualization stacks, are pervasive throughout the industry. How does Red Hat support the API ecosystem?
So applications run somewhere, right? People think, oh, I put my app on the cloud. But when you ask, what is cloud? Open the box. It's the platform, OS, and networking, and storage, obviously high-performing infrastructure, and then a platform that is powered by the OS. So Red Hat provides all software stacks starting from verifying the hardware with the drivers, operating system, and platform on top of the frameworks and automation. Now we are also, like rest of the industry, embracing the impact and the benefits of AI. And we are evolving our product into dynamic, I would say more dynamic API offering than static ones. If you're familiar with the APIs, I really hate APIs because of the fact that you have to maintain the versions, the network path, and so on and so forth. Whenever you need a new feature, you have to rely on the forthcoming version, and you have to maintain the backward compatibility. It is really cumbersome work, and I had done many bruises through the startups, and at Verizon too. And with the introduction of intent-driven networking and intent-driven APIs, this is where Red Hat is introducing how we can avoid all the shortcomings of classic way of doing API, network programmability, instead of intent-driven and NLP-driven API for platform, which we call AI for platform inference or platform interface. This is where we are heading as a platform vendor, as a software partner.
Well, that's, I think, a very important layer there, easing the implementation and speed to market. And then the rest of the panelists here, they're working above that layer to just implement and roll this out and get it to be commercial, right? So when I asked how many of you knew about or know what an API is, telco API, network API, hardly any hands went up. First of all, I don't believe you. I think many of you do know. But it's a valid question because so what what is this good for? What's the benefit? What are new use cases or existing use cases that can be enhanced, as I said, and most importantly, where's the money? Where's the monetization, right? So this I'd like to hear from the panelists. Favorite applications, because I think use cases and applications kind of really help people understand what the API can be used for. So why don't we just go left to right here? Starting with Alicia.
Favorite use cases. Well, I'm going to do the political answer for this one. What we're focused on first are fraud prevention use cases. So we're going to use number verify and SIM swap to really beef up multi-factor authentication. So if you think about your banking app, they might send you a one-time passcode when you try to log in. But if that can happen instead seamlessly in the background on your device, where it uses the one single source of truth for network information, that's where you can really beef up the security for a login. And then the second one, because I'm going to take two, is QOD, quality on demand. I love that for media and entertainment. My favorite use case, it might not have the highest TAM in the world, but my favorite use case is playing music together across thousands of miles. And we can use QOD and we can use wavelength zones to make that happen. And we've done that across Toronto, New York, and London. And it was really incredible. So I think those are my two favorites.
I also like the QOD because it's it's a push to boost button.
Yeah.
And so if I'm at the airport, which many of you know me, I'm flying around constantly, and I'm trying to download the latest series of the Great British Baking Show, and it's just chunking along even on 5G. If I have QOD, I can go to the head of the line and get my download happening in just a minute or less. So But the first example is a great one because the next panel after this, we're going to drill down or double click on this whole use of APIs for identity authentication and fraud prevention. So, next.
Next. All right.
Fatih.
So, if you're familiar with the 3GPP, what 3GPP introduced with the 5G is mainly approach to making things more obstructed in a way that it's called service-based architecture. What it is every component, every application logic becoming an API endpoint, i.e. they are becoming an artifact, ingredient. So if you think that as network being an ingredient, as an artifact, to build something different out of it with combining other artifacts, there's going to be endless opportunities for new ideas to come into a market. One example, like you were mentioning, right? If you're living in the United States, one of the key things, and we are coming into the holiday season, is pumpkin spice latte, right? So it becomes so phenomenal because merging different ingredients caught up an attention of a large audience because they loved it. So imagine mixing network programmability with AI, with other artifacts. Could be a consumer app, could be an enterprise like our CS case. So opportunities are endless because network is no longer island that you cannot reach or you can see, but you can consume it as an artifact.
Great.
Startups.
No, appreciate. Okay, so that's what I was going to say. So now your personal favorite API use case.
Personal
actual implementation.
Well, we are in the age of TikTok, so if you think that more social interaction and high bandwidth rather than short clips, more, I would say, augmented living. Now we have this, I know it's not flying much, but the AR, VR glass didn't fly, but when we are heading to, if you see the launch of the Meta with the new glasses, and the reason they are not launching right now because of the price of the unit is so high, but we are heading in a way that AI-infused applications on a personal device or enterprise device that is tying to network programmability with network slicing, for example. Okay, I want to reach to network address book for presence and enriching my communication instead of I go Facebook, depending on Facebook as a proprietary platform for presence notifications.
Great. Colin?
So, the core one that we're focusing on first is anti-fraud and security. But the reason why we're doing that, I think, is more important, right? When we talk to our customers who use us for voice, video, and messaging today, they don't say, hey, we need a network API, we need a SIM swap API. They say, we have a sign-up fraud problem, we have an SMS AIT or pumping problem. So we're really listening to our customers, understanding the problems they're facing in their business today or the capabilities they're looking for and saying, hey, we can solve this possibly with a network API or something else. So we think that is the first step that gets the people who are using the communications APIs today to use network APIs to solve their problems. And then that takes them on the next step journeys to like QAD and other things from there.
Mijo?
It's kind of unfair. We have two use cases, and now we are kind of recycling them. So, no, my favorite use case is actually one that is coming next, and I don't know which one is it, because when we expose all this to the community, to all those great developers, either directly or through the hackathons or whatever, or through the hyperscalers, then actual innovation will kick on, and then we will actually have more people brainstorm about the actual applications in their own field. Currently, of course, we are only in our own field, and I of course, the fraud prevention and security is kind of a hot topic. Our favorite project in Brazil, where we cover the whole market and really prove it's working, it's possible, it's live, commercial, brands are using it. Personally, of course, I like this on demand, so I can go to Raiders game and order my hot dog and drink without being congestion and getting a drink 2 quarters after. But there are some cool industry applications as well. Together with our partners, we are navigating the ships in these, the passages or whatever. So currently we are working what we have, but again, I'm excited for what's coming, and I kind of agree with Colin. When we start mixing it with kind of different applications, either CPaaS APIs or some industry ones or hyperscalers, then the real innovation will kick on.
I would also add to that. One thing you find is that, especially in the communication space, when if you remember number sharing, all of a sudden, 15 years ago, everybody had one number for one one customer, and then somebody came up with the thought of, oh, let's share numbers, right? And all of a sudden the number pools went down, everybody did it. So I expect network APIs to also have a follow-on effect in the industry when some new use case that none of us have thought of, right, takes off, everybody's going to want to use it. So it's really interesting.
Yeah.
I also think I'm going to use a buzzword, and it's not synergy, it's AI. If we think about, so some of these network APIs, we've talked about number verified, QoD, but there are other APIs around network information, network performance, network insights. And so if you think about getting that information on how a network is performing at a particular location, subscriber density, and you think about getting that information and then using AI, machine learning, you could use computer vision, you could couple it, so talk kind of to what you were saying about kind of mashing a bunch of different pieces of information together. And then you allow kind of AI to take over, find those patterns in that data, make decisions. What can you do with that information? That information isn't out there today either. So I think we're talking about these use cases and we're saying, well, we don't even know what all these cool use cases could be because we've never allowed access to this information before. This is all new. Developers have never been able to have this type of access to information and capabilities before, and that's what's really exciting.
Thanks so much for bringing that up. I mean, this is a very, very key point. I think I started with use cases because I wanted to try to
make it real.
The audience to make it tangible, real, understand what this can be used for. But when an operator opens up or exposes its network, as a network as a service platform, what does that really mean? The operator has many, many pieces of information from just signals or stats to big data that's not exposed today. And frankly, most of the operators are not even using it very much internally. So there's a huge opportunity for monetization, huge opportunity to expose these resources for new applications. And it could be commercial applications, or it could be just improving the user experience and the performance of the network, and which translates to a better experience on your phone. But beyond getting information from the network, you can actually control the network. So we talked about QoD a few times. So imagine actually controlling Verizon's network, right? It sounds absurd, but this QoD API, that's exactly what it does. I'm a user, I push a button that activates, or I pay a little fee to get momentarily higher bandwidth or better prioritization, which means I'm actually telling Verizon, hey, put my traffic ahead of the queue. So that's actually controlling the network. So APIs actually are very, very powerful. And I'd argue we're here, it's MEF connects business messaging, so how do we relate this to SMS, RCS, business messaging in general? Do APIs, does this spell the death of messaging? No, absolutely not. I mean, there is some cannibalization on some usage, because today we use SMS and RCS even as kind of like an API, right? A lot of the bulk messaging, one-time password, that doesn't have to be over that channel anymore. But what can be enhanced is how business messaging is being done, the user experience, reducing fraud, verifying user. Sorry for the panel that follows us. We're basically hijacking your whole topic here, because we're talking apparently nothing more than except fraud and identity, and also a little bit QoD. But so I think this is an important piece of the API puzzle. But I want to come back up out of the weeds again and talk about implementation, because I think Infobip, you touched on it a little bit, but you did a implementation in Brazil that I briefly covered in my intro. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I think that helps the audience to understand really the power of APIs and the importance of reach.
Yeah. Well, the story of implementation in Brazil is more like a painful story, but unfortunately, and we learn a lot. And again, how we come to this one is basically talking to brands. And as Colin mentioned, we're not selling APIs. We shouldn't. I mean, there's a niche of customers who are buying APIs, but majority of people don't know what API is and doesn't care. Just try to talk to some chief marketing officer. Hey, I have 3 cool APIs. Like, what? So as we all said today, like, we are solving the problems, and we were talking to our customers, and they were saying, like, look, the fraud is there. We need to be more and more secure, and more security mechanisms we inject, it's actually more painful for our customers, and we're losing the CX, the customer experience. And then you reach the ultimate security, and then basically customers churn because, like, no one want to use it. So it was like, okay, how we can make things secure, but at the same time with great customer experience. And this is where those APIs comes in, and this seamless authentication combined with fraud detection, tenure, and combination of all this. We throw in a little bit of KYC and stuff. So this is how we started. But then implementation comes. You first of all, we already agreed, like, no brand will use any use case if there's no 100 or about, in my experience, about 80% coverage. And this is kind of the trigger, because if you are a bank, what does it mean? Okay, I'm protecting 30% of my customers. If you're a retailer, it's even worse, or like e-commerce or stuff like this. So then we start talking to 3 big carriers, and we find out they're in different stages of maturity, meaning one has the technology ready, kind of underneath API ready, one didn't even start, one somewhere in between, working with third party. So actually, we get into the work of enabling, which we don't want to be. We don't want to be enablers, but you need to help them enable themselves to be able to start using it and exposing it and stuff like this. So this project is like a 1 year nice experience, but we are happy after this. First, we learned a lot. We make a proof point. It's a significant market. The traffic is nicely growing, and a lot of use cases are coming. The brands actually, what we are now doing is this education part, where we actually bring brands to talk to their kind of like colleagues in other companies. So they are actually those evangelists of this new thing, because we need to realize that it's new. So no one wants to throw money and kind of pilot the new stuff. Like, you need to be sure that you're investing in the right thing. And resources are scattered. The same is with carriers. I really welcome this 12 plus Ericsson, because this makes a proof point. Yeah, this is the right direction. Because if you miss, you lose 1 to 3 years, and then you realize, okay, now I lose time, resources, and I need to go back and turn somewhere else.
So I think that's right? Scale and reach, as I mentioned at the beginning. And so this JV with Ericsson and these 12 carriers is very important. It's happening in other parts of the world as well. In Asia, there's a large mobile operator alliance that's rolled out a similar gateway or hub. So it's happening, and that's kind of breaking this whole chicken or the egg thing. You need to have the platforms there. You need to have reach. You need to have ubiquity. That's why SMS works, because it's ubiquitous, right? And you said something really important. We shouldn't sell APIs, right? No one knows what an API is. No one cares. All they care about is the benefit. What does the benefit the API? What does it bring? So let me go to you, Colin, both of you, actually, because I want to understand the ecosystem, the food chain. So where does a CPaaS vendor sit in an aggregator?
Just to add one thing on top of that, one of the things I think is extremely critically important is we talk about the developer all the time. The developer is absolutely critical to making this work, but I refer to a lot what we call the operator persona, which is the person who's not the developer and has to go in and do all the registrations. One of the things with network APIs is that you're now getting access, as Alicia said, to the core parts of the network that were never exposed before. Everybody has to be approved. Like who's tried to register 10 DLC before? Like, raise your hands, right? Everybody, right? And who's had a delightful experience doing it? Right. So what we did with Network Registry was we said, hey, we want to make a completely compliant, frictionless experience here. So we made a system using TMF 931 APIs to allow both customers to register their intent and use cases for the APIs in a transparent way, and then for operators to approve those use cases and to be able to enable and disable them at will. So we really want to make sure that experience of enabling them in the ecosystem is frictionless all the way across, which will help with the adoption speed of adoption, because you need to register. You're a global company. You need to go on to 100 operators around the world, or 200 operators. It's a lot.
Makes sense. And then, Mijo, tell us a little bit more about where a company like Infobip fits in the whole ecosystem.
Not necessarily just Infobip, so any CPaaS player where it fits, and I think it fits kind of nicely complement the ecosystem. First of all, we know API. API is there for a decade, and this is just yet another API. So like you have the machinery that is kind of working around this, and all those APIs, just you put them in the sprint, and it's part of your ecosystem. But there's a lot of things happening in the background, like OSS, BSS, billing, charging, all this that you need to make sure is working, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel for the new API that is coming and exposing those cool network features. That's one. Second is we are kind of like customers and resellers. So we are yet another reselling channel, which I think is important at this moment for network. So we need everybody, all directions, so developers, hyperscalers, we have one here, all these cloud companies. So we are also yet another one. We talk to developers, are they in-house, or all those behind our customers, and this will help all this to succeed. So like if we all do our own part, the market will shift up a little bit.
Great. So we're running short on time. So with the remaining time, I'd like to go back to Alicia and get your perspective on what does the mobile operator gain or get out of exposing network functions via APIs?
It's a really good question. I think that there's obviously a revenue play to it, right? We're going to charge for the API calls or the underlying service in the case maybe of network slicing. But I think beyond that, what it really does is make the telco network more valuable. Like I said, we've never allowed access to this type of information and these type of capabilities before, let alone in a way that's as simple as an API call. And so when we now show the power of a telco network and we allow everyone to take advantage of those capabilities, my theory is that it makes the telco network more valuable. It should also increase stickiness of the customer, reduce churn, because now customers are getting more of what they want. They're getting access to more capabilities that they haven't had before. So it should reduce churn. And it should really increase revenue overall, not only just from the APIs, but also in core pull-through of network capabilities. If you're allowing more access to the network and you're giving people more ways and better ways to leverage the network, it should mean that now they're going to do that more. And so that should just be more pull-through of the core network. So it's API monetization, but it's also, I think, a lot bigger than that.
Great. So unfortunately, we're out of time, but we have another panel coming up now that's going to drill down on the topic of using APIs for identity and anti-fraud. Again, this is very exciting times, mobile evolution. So you've seen a glimpse here. APIs is a big part of this evolution for the mobile space, not just mobile operators, but the whole ecosystem. And it's about evolution and transformation. And let's thank the panelists here for a great talk.